Did you know that food prices are set to jump another 40% by the end of next year? Hey, what's up, guys? I'm not trying to scare you, but honestly, things are about to get real. Food shortages are already hitting store shelves, and when crisis hits, certain foods will literally get you hunted. Today, I'm exposing the 6 foods that'll make you a target when everyone else is desperate. Trust me, you need to know this now before it's too late. Food 6. Coffee, caffeine. Hey, so the first food that'll get you hunted after crisis hits? Coffee. I'm not even joking. Look, I get it. You're probably sipping your morning cup right now thinking, no way people would come after me for coffee. But you'd be dead wrong. Here's the thing. According to the latest trade reports I found, coffee imports are about to get hit with those new 10% tariffs on China and a whopping 25% on imports from Mexico and Canada. And guess what? That's going to absolutely wreck the supply chain that most Americans depend on for their daily fix. But it gets worse. Think about it. What's the first thing you reach for every morning? For like 70% of Americans, it's caffeine. It's literally the most widely used psychoactive drug in the world. And when people can't get their fix, they get desperate. Like, really desperate. Let me paint a picture for you. It's 3 weeks into a major crisis. The power's been spotty, store shelves are empty, and your neighbor Bob, the quiet accountant guy who never caused any trouble, he hasn't had coffee for 5 days. His head is pounding. He can barely function. Then he catches a whiff of that beautiful coffee aroma coming from your place. You think Bob's still your friendly neighbor at that point? Hell no. Studies show caffeine withdrawal can cause severe headaches, extreme fatigue, and even depression. And people will do crazy things to avoid that pain. During past shortages, you know what happened? Coffee became more valuable than gold in some places. I'm not exaggerating. During World War II, coffee was rationed to just 1 pound per person every 5 weeks. People literally started breaking into warehouses just to steal coffee beans. And here's something shocking from my research. Recent climate reports show that by next year, we could lose up to 50% of suitable coffee-growing land due to extreme weather events. Brazil and Vietnam, which supply most of the world's coffee, are already seeing decreased yields. Look, I'm not saying don't store coffee, you probably should. It's a great barter item. But what I am saying is you better keep that shit hidden and be smart about it. Don't be brewing it where anyone can smell it. Don't let those empty bags pile up in your trash, and definitely don't mention your stash to anyone. Because when the world goes sideways, that innocent morning cup of joe might as well be a neon sign above your house saying, "Rob me," to everyone experiencing withdrawal. Trust me on this one, guys. Coffee might seem harmless now, but when crisis hits, it'll put a target right on your back faster than you can say, double espresso. Food 5. Cooking oils. Let's talk about cooking oil, that golden liquid most of us overlook, until it becomes deadly valuable. Right now, global events are turning oil into the new commodity king. Soybean oil prices just surged 11%, palm oil jumped 6%, and by the end of the year, the USDA warns we'll face tight canola and rapeseed supplies due to slashed global output, low stocks, and growing biofuel demand. Why this spike? It's the classic food versus fuel dilemma. Massive biofuel mandates in countries like Indonesia, the US, and parts of Europe are funneling crops from dinner tables to fuel tanks. Indonesia itself rerouted nearly 40% of its palm oil to meet its B40 biofuel mandate, slashing exports and sending prices soaring. Even amid climate uncertainty and geopolitical conflict, like rising Middle East tensions, biofuel volumes keep climbing, putting more heat on edible oil availability. Imagine your pantry. You've stashed a row of cooking oil bottles, vegetable, canola, maybe olive oil, thinking it's a safe bet for your post-crisis meals. But here's the scary part. Most thieves won't bother with canned corn or beans when they know you've got oil. That shiny, calorie-packed jug? It's liquid gold in desperate times. It fuels cooking, trading, even bartering. Crisis survivors from history tell us oil was a prime target. And now? Analysts are warning that rapeseed and sunflower oil stocks could drop 24% next year, absorbed by soaring demand. So yeah, in your survival stash, oil is the wild card. It turns you from hidden preppers to targets, unless you get smart about hiding it. Here's your full playbook for securing your cooking oils. Rotate stock religiously. Oils degrade fast. Polyunsaturated soybean, sunflower, or corn spirits can spoil in 6 months if exposed to heat, light, and oxygen. Keep your bottles dated, rotate them, and always cook with the oldest first. Control the environment. Heat and light are the enemies of oil. Studies show oils stored at tilde 100 degree F go bad in 6-8 months, while at 60 degrees Fahrenheit they can last 3 years. So put those jugs in a cool dark spot. If you can, throw them in the fridge or freezer between uses. Mask the bottles. This is key. Strip the labels, rehouse your oil jugs inside empty detergent or pet food boxes or dark opaque tins. The more ordinary it looks, the less likely anyone will spot it. Double tape for extra camouflage. Diversify oils smartly. Don't rely on just one. Olive and coconut oil are richer in monounsaturated saturated fats, so they resist zapping better than veggie oil. Coconut oil can stay solid and fresh for 2-3 years. Olive oil can last up to 2 years if sealed and cool. Plus, animal fats or rendered fats from hunted game add cooking flexibility in a real pinch. Choose high smoke point oils for frying. Nobody wants rancid, bitter, or harmful oils. The latest research points to high heat neutral oils, canola, peanut, avocado, as the best for repeated use. They also help you stretch your stash, filter after each cooking session, and keep stored well. You can reuse some oils up to 12 times. Stay informed about the market. This isn't static. New US EPA mandates for biofuel blending may hike demand again, and policy shifts could rip supply out from underneath us. Watch the news on biofuel targets, tariffs, and geopolitical hotspots. Make your next oil purchase before the rush. So here's the bottom line. Your cooking oil stash isn't just another pantry shelf. It's calorie-dense, essential, and a high-risk target. If you store it wrong, talk about it openly, or leave it in plain sight, you're signing up for trouble. But hide it smart, rotate it, cool it, disguise it, diversify it, and you've got yourself a survival asset that lasts and keeps your family safe. And hey, coming up next, I'm going to show you how to build a secret stash compartment that even the cleverest scavenger won't spot. Don't miss it. Subscribe and stay prepared. Food 4. Chocolate and comfort foods. This one's going to shock you because it seems so innocent. We're talking about chocolate bars, candy, cookies, even something as simple as a pack of gum. Stuff you'd casually give to kids on Halloween. But here's what nobody tells you. During a crisis, these become more dangerous to own than ammunition. Let me paint you a picture of what's happening right now in 2025. Chocolate prices have exploded 300% since the start of 2024, hitting $12,000 per metric ton. That's not a typo. We're talking about a full-blown chocolate crisis that makes your Snickers bar worth more per ounce than some precious metals. But here's the really terrifying part, and this is backed by actual brain science. When we eat chocolate, our brains make a chemical called serotonin that helps us feel good and happy. Plus, it triggers endorphins, which are natural substances that make us feel happy. During normal times, that's great. During a crisis, that makes chocolate a literal drug. You know what researchers found when they studied people during COVID lockdowns? 2/3 of American adults ate comfort foods from their childhood, whether intentionally or accidentally, to help them deal with the pandemic's effects. Think about that. When the world got scary, the first thing people reached for wasn't more rice and beans. It was the foods that made them feel safe as kids. And here's where it gets really dark. Scientists have proven that eating chocolate reduces negative mood compared to drinking water. And these fat and sugar-filled foods have a feedback effect that actually dampens stress-related responses and emotions. These foods literally are comfort foods. They chemically counteract stress. But you want to know what keeps me up at night? Focus group participants frequently explain their chocolate need state as a desperate need. One participant depicted herself as a crazy woman who needed a chocolate fix whenever she was stressed. We're not talking about people who just enjoy chocolate. We're talking about people who become desperate without it. During the siege of Sarajevo, chocolate was more valuable than gold. People traded family jewelry for a single chocolate bar. Not because they were hungry, they had bread, they had basic food, but because chocolate represented hope. It represented the feeling of being human instead of just surviving. And here's the psychological trap that'll get you killed. Studies suggest people who experience a lot of stress in childhood have a stronger preference for sweets later in life. So the people who are most likely to become dangerous during a crisis, they're also the ones who need chocolate the most. When people see you have chocolate, they don't just want it for themselves. They want it for their kids. Picture this. A parent watches their child cry every night from fear and hunger, and they know that you have something that could make their baby smile, even for 5 minutes. What do you think that parent is willing to do? Plus, these foods are impossible to hide. You can bury rice, you can stash beans in your basement, but when someone sees you pull out a chocolate bar in a crisis, everyone within a 50-foot radius stops what they're doing. Word spreads faster than wildfire. Suddenly, you're not just the family with food. You're the family with happiness. And that makes you target number 1. Food 3, spices and salt. Okay, this one's going to sound absolutely insane until you hear what's happening right now. We're literally witnessing history repeat itself, and most people have no clue. You know that little container of black pepper sitting on your kitchen counter? The one you probably paid $3 for at the grocery store? Well, that same amount of black pepper just became worth more than a day's wages in some parts of the world. I'm not exaggerating. There's a global black pepper shortage happening right now. Like, right now, as I'm talking to you. Prices have doubled, sometimes tripled, and restaurant owners are literally having to redesign their menus because they can't get pepper. Think about that for a second. People are changing what food they serve because of a spice shortage. But here's what's really terrifying. This is just the beginning. Vietnam and Indonesia, the places that grow most of the world's black pepper, are getting hammered by climate change. The monsoons are unpredictable, crops are failing, and entire harvests are being lost to fungal infections. The 2025 harvest has already been delayed by 2 months because of labor shortages and extreme weather. And it's not just pepper. We've got salt shortages hitting the northeastern United States so bad that governors are declaring disaster emergencies. American rock salt, the biggest producer in the country, has already shipped more salt this winter than all of last year, and we're not even done with winter yet. But you know what's really going to blow your mind? Salt has caused more wars throughout history than almost any other commodity. More than oil, more than gold, more than land itself. I'm talking about the salt wars of Ethiopia, where nomadic tribes are still fighting each other, right now in 2025, over control of salt caravans. People are dying over salt blocks. In the 21st century. You want to know how valuable salt really is? Roman soldiers weren't just sometimes paid in salt, they demanded it. That's where we get the word salary. When someone says you're worth your salt, they're talking about literal currency. Salt was money. And here's the thing that should keep you awake at night. During the French Revolution, you know what pushed people over the edge? It wasn't just taxes, it was the gabelle, the salt tax. The government forced people to buy minimum amounts of salt at inflated prices, and people literally rioted in the streets. They overthrew a government partly because of salt. Venice became one of the most powerful cities in human history. Not because of art, not because of culture, because they controlled the Mediterranean salt trade. 70% of their tax revenue came from salt. They fought wars with Genoa that lasted for years over salt routes. But here's what makes spices and salt absolutely deadly to possess during a crisis. They're the perfect storm of valuable and obvious. You can hide rice in a basement. You can bury beans in your backyard. But when someone sees you using real spices, when your food actually tastes good while everyone else is eating bland survival rations, you've just announced to the world that you have treasure. And I mean treasure. During the Middle Ages, a pound of black pepper was worth more than a pound of silver. Christopher Columbus didn't risk his life to find a new route to America. He was looking for a spice route. The entire age of exploration happened because Europeans were so desperate for spices that they were willing to sail into the unknown ocean. The Dutch East India Company, one of the most powerful corporations in human history, was built on spice trade. They literally committed genocide on the Banda Islands to control nutmeg production. They wiped out entire populations to corner the spice market. And you know what's really scary? Spices last forever. Salt never goes bad. So if people know you have them, they don't just think you're rich today. They think you're rich forever. You're not just surviving, you're thriving. And that makes you a target. Here's a story that'll give you chills. During the siege of Sarajevo, a woman was killed, murdered, for a small container of paprika. Not for bread, not for meat, for paprika. Because after months of eating the same tasteless emergency food, that little bit of spice represented everything she'd lost. It represented the taste of home. And right now, as I'm talking to you, we're seeing the early stages of this happening again. Restaurant owners are canceling orders because spice prices have become too high. Food manufacturers are reformulating recipes because they can't get the ingredients they need. But here's the real kicker. Spices are small and portable. That little spice rack in your kitchen? In a collapse scenario, it's basically a mobile bank. Each one of those little containers could be worth a week's worth of food in trade. That makes you a walking target. You think people won't notice? Trust me, they'll notice. When everyone's eating bland rice and beans and you're over there seasoning your food, people are going to pay attention. And word spreads fast in small communities. I've read accounts from every major collapse in recent history, Yugoslavia, Venezuela, Argentina, and the same pattern repeats. People who had obvious luxury items, including spices and seasonings, became targets. Not because they were evil or greedy, but because desperate people do desperate things. Food too, rice and beans. Okay, this one everyone knows about. Rice and beans are like the poster children of emergency preparedness. They're cheap, they last forever, and together they make a complete protein. Every prepper has them, every survival guide recommends them, and that's exactly the problem. But first, let me hit you with some numbers that'll make your head spin. Right now, as I'm talking to you, Japan, a country that literally worships rice, is facing what they're calling a rice crisis. The price of rice has nearly doubled in just 1 year, jumping 98.4% year-on-year in April 2025. We're talking about an 11-pound bag of rice that used to cost about $15 now costing over $30, and this isn't some third-world country we're talking about. This is Japan, one of the most organized, efficient countries on the planet. They've been forced to release 210,000 tons of rice from their emergency strategic reserves, more than a fifth of what they hold for disasters. Think about that for a second. A country that prides itself on preparation is burning through its crisis stockpiles just to keep rice on store shelves. You know what's really terrifying? Supermarkets are limiting customers to 1 bag of rice per person. In Japan, a country where the word for meal literally means cooked rice. Some schools have cut back on the days they serve rice for lunch. That's like American schools cutting back on bread. But here's where it gets really interesting for us. Japanese tourists are now buying rice during their trips to other Asian countries because it's cheaper abroad than at home. When people start smuggling rice across international borders, we've crossed into serious territory. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but that's just Japan. That can't happen here. Wrong. The UN predicts that cereal and corn will start running out next year. We're likely to see more empty grocery store shelves and more food inflation by the end of this summer. And beans? Don't even get me started on beans. The global beans and legumes market has been hammered by supply chain disruptions, irregular weather patterns, pest attacks, and crop diseases. There's record demand for faba beans and lentils, with prices hitting historically high levels. Why? Because end users can't get hold of imported soy meal they usually use, so they're switching to local pulses like faba beans, lupins, and field peas. When someone sees you eating rice and beans during a crisis, they immediately know 3 things. First, You planned ahead. Second, you have more where that came from. Third, you have the 1-2 punch of survival foods that can keep someone alive indefinitely. But here's what really makes this dangerous. Rice and beans aren't just food, they're a statement. They're saying, I'm prepared for the long haul. During famines throughout history, rice has been so valuable that governments have fallen over control of rice supplies. The phrase, rice riots, exists for a reason. Here's a story that'll chill you to the bone. During the 1940s Bengal famine in India, people were literally dying in the streets while rice sat in warehouses. The British colonial government was hoarding rice to control the population. Over 3 million people starved to death, not because there wasn't food, because rice had become a weapon. And here's the psychological trap with rice and beans. Everyone knows their survival food. If someone sees you with a 25-pound bag of rice during normal times, they might think, oh, they must cook a lot of Asian food. But if someone sees you with rice during a crisis, they immediately think, preppers. And preppers have other stuff. Lots of other stuff. The real danger is that rice and beans are obvious. You can't hide them. A 25-pound bag of rice doesn't exactly blend in with your regular groceries. When you're carrying that bag to your car, every neighbor, every stranger in the parking lot, every person you pass is doing the math in their head. And here's what keeps me up at night. Food prices have already jumped 40% in just 5 years, and experts are predicting another 5% spike in 2025. When rice becomes unaffordable for regular families, who do you think they're going to remember? The neighbor who was buying rice by the bag months ago when it was still cheap. Food 1. Canned preserved meat. Listen, I was talking to my buddy who works at this major grocery chain last week, and you know what he told me? Their warehouses are already running at 65% capacity for canned meats. Down from 90% last year? That's insane. And it's not just some random shortage that'll bounce back next month. This is part of a massive pattern we're seeing everywhere. Here's the deal. When crisis hits, protein becomes the most valuable food currency on the planet. Think about it. Your body literally cannot function without it. And guess what? According to a 2025 report, meat prices are expected to skyrocket even further this year due to those new tariffs Trump just implemented on imports from Mexico and Canada. We're talking about a 40% increase in just 5 years. That's not inflation, folks. That's a crisis in slow motion. Let me paint you a picture real quick. Imagine your neighborhood 3 weeks into a major supply chain collapse. The fresh meat section at the store? Empty. Completely wiped out. But those cans of tuna, chicken, and Spam in your pantry? That's like walking around with gold bars. I've actually seen this firsthand during the hurricane that hit my cousin's town last year. Day 3, people weren't asking to borrow sugar. They were offering ridiculous trades for protein. One guy literally offered a car battery for just 6 cans of tuna. Not even joking. The problem isn't just that you have food. It's that you have the most valuable type of food, and everyone can see it. You know those people who post their prepper pantries on social media? Might as well post your home address and work schedule while you're at it. Seriously though, canned meat screams, I'm prepared in the worst possible way during a crisis. Picture this. You're making dinner, opening a can of chicken. Your neighbor who hasn't eaten protein in days hears that distinctive can opening sound through an open window. That sound might as well be a dinner bell for desperate people. And before you think I'm being dramatic, studies show that smell and sound are actually stronger triggers for food cravings than visual cues. That's why food commercials always have that sizzle sound. It's literally triggering your brain at a primitive level. And it gets worse. Studies show that more than half of America's red meat supply comes from Canada. And with the new 25% tariffs that just kicked in, prices are already jumping through the roof. People aren't prepared for this. The average American has less than 3 days of food at home. 3 days. Now imagine everyone around you hitting that 3-day mark at once. This isn't theoretical. We've seen it play out in smaller scales all over the world. Look, I'm not making this up. During the Texas power crisis a few years back, There were multiple reports of break-ins, specifically targeting homes where people were seen bringing in grocery bags or where cooking smells were coming from houses that still had power. One family I know actually had to leave their home because word got out they had a generator and food storage. Not because they were actually attacked, but because the threat became so obvious they didn't feel safe anymore. The craziest part? Canned meat is literally designed to be visible. Bright labels, distinctive shapes, stored in pantries that are the first place people look when they break in. And the trash? Those empty cans in your garbage might as well be a billboard saying, "We have food here." I know a guy who works in security who says the first thing desperate people check is the garbage. It tells them exactly what you have inside. What most prepper guides won't tell you is that protein sources are the #1 target during food shortages. While everyone talks about storing rice and beans, studies show that protein cravings become almost irresistible after just 72 hours of inadequate intake. Your body literally starts sending emergency signals to your brain, making people do crazy things they normally wouldn't. So what should you do? I'm not saying don't stock up on protein. You absolutely should. But you need to be smart about it. In a minute, I'll show you exactly how to store these essential items so they don't make you a target. There's this method using everyday household items that hides your canned goods in plain sight. Most people walk right past them even when they're looking for food. Look, I'm not telling you to throw away your emergency food. That would be stupid. But I am telling you to be smart about it. First, diversify what you store. Instead of obvious prep foods, think about foods that don't scream, "I'm prepared." Things like pasta, flour, cooking oil, canned vegetables, stuff that looks like normal grocery shopping. Second, if you do have these high-value foods, hide them. And I mean, really hide them. Not in your pantry where anyone who enters your house can see them. Think basement, think buried, think somewhere that isn't obvious. Third, build community, now. The safest bartering happens between friends and neighbors who trust each other. Start those relationships today while times are good. And finally, develop skills that are less obvious than having stuff. Learn to garden. Learn basic medical care. Learn to repair things. Skills can't be stolen from you in the same way food can. Listen, I'm not trying to make you paranoid, but being prepared isn't about having the most food. It's about having the right food, stored the right way. The crisis is already starting, guys. Look around. Food prices are up 40% in 5 years, and humanitarian food assistance is expected to drop by 45% in 2025. Don't wait until empty shelves are on the news. Start making these changes today. And hey, if you found this valuable, smash that like button and subscribe for more survival tips that nobody else is talking about. Your family's security might depend on it. Stay safe out there.